A little bit chilly in the office today, so we're wearing more clothes than ever before. You want to see a review with a little bit of less clothes, you go ahead and subscribe to that OnlyFans, baby. Ah. Alright guys, welcome back to Days of Darkness and welcome to my review of Dr. Sleep. This one came out in 2019. It is starring Ewan Mcgregor, Rebecca Ferguson, and Kylie Curran, and was directed by Mike Flanagan. Now, oh man, so I remember the first time I heard of this movie coming out. I knew nothing of the novel Dr. Sleep. I knew nothing about it. I just never got around to reading it, looking into the story or anything. So I knew nothing. So I was looking at this as this is a sequel to The Shining. Those are some mighty, mighty, mighty big shoes to fill. Um, and I gotta say, I was worried. I was worried. I was very, very worried when this movie was being hyped up. We didn't get a trailer or anything yet. I was getting the cast. I saw Ewan McGregor. I was like, okay, all right, this, right on. And then we got that trailer, dude, and I was sold. I try not to get my hopes up too much about like big sequels like this, but that first trailer was fucking rad, man. And then eventually, we get the movie that comes out, and that it completely blew me away. I gotta be honest. So I was curious, and I had seen it one other time since then. I think I watched it with my mom or something like that. So I was really curious to come back and see what it was like with more of a critical eye, not just fanboying the entire time. And yeah, dude, this movie just fucking rules. There's really no way other than that to really describe it. I mean, you could definitely describe it in more ways than just this rules, bro. But it's fucking great, and it works so well as a sequel. You know, and you look at The Shining, and you look at the quality of The Shining, and just how goddamn good that movie is. And what I love about this movie so much is it is not trying to be The Shining. It is not trying to emulate that tone, that feel that movie has. It's obviously similar in some ways because it is a direct sequel, but this movie does a really good job of honoring the past because there is a ton of fan service here, mostly in the third act, but it never feels unwelcome. The way this movie is structured. I don't really consider this a spoiler because I'm not really saying anything about it, but they save a lot of the big fan service. Here's what you want to see, um, to like the ending, to like the last 30 minutes, and everything up until that point, is its own unique, awesome fucking story. And this is a movie that greatly contrasts to the story of The Shining. It's still in the same universe. It still has some returning characters and stuff like that, but in a lot of ways this movie is completely different. And in other ways it holds true to that original feeling. This movie just does it right, dude. A lot of movies will try to just completely retread and completely go over what worked before, and it never works the same. Big example of that is Psycho 98. That's a remake. This is a little different. But, when you just try and do the exact same thing, it never comes off as well. So I really, really like that this movie set out and did its own fucking thing. Obviously, from what I hear, they honored a good amount of Stephen King's work, but they obviously have to switch some things around. But overall, I think Mike Flanagan did a fucking great job with this, dude. I really, 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 really like this movie. But yeah, man, that'll pretty much do it for the spoiler-free section. I really don't want to get too far into any detail. I really want you guys, if you haven't seen this and you've seen, obviously go see The Shining first. But if you haven't seen this and you have seen The Shining, please, for the love of God, go see this movie. It is just fucking phenomenal. So, without further ado, man, let's just go ahead and let's spoil the shit out of this motherfucker. Let's get on to the spoiler section. All right. Spoiler time. Your ass has been warned. Now. I gotta have fun with it every once in a while. Anyways, let's just get right into it, guys. So, this is one that is very, very, how do I say this? If I spend this review going over the plot beat by beat by beat, which I try not to do, I know sometimes I get excited and just run down the story, but if I do that here, we're going to be here for the length of the movie, which was 2.5 hours, and I don't want to do that to you guys. You got to stare at my fucking mug enough. So I figured it'd be a good idea to talk about what I would say to be the three pillars of this movie. The three characters that really, really tie this movie together. And in doing that, we're pretty much going to hit all the bases that I want to hit. Now, this is going to be completely out of order, so if you're trying to substitute a watch with this review, you're not going to get that. You should never do that anyways. Never, ever watch a review or never watch any type of review or anything without watching the movie first. Formulate your own opinion and yada yada yada. And I've talked to some people who don't fucking like this movie. I don't get that, but hey, it's all good. So moving on. So yeah, three pillars. First of all, I really, really want to talk about Danny Torrance. He is the main legacy character returning from The Shining. Obviously, they did not get Danny Lloyd to reprise this role. He's no longer an actor, as I said in the Shining review. He's now I believe a science professor at a high school. So good for him. They did manage to get him for a cameo, though, at the baseball field with that one guy talking about how good the baseball boy is, and we'll get into baseball boy, but this fucking guy is like talking about how good he is, and I never realized it. And then just doing the light little bit of research that I do for these reviews, I saw him like, oh my fucking god, that's Danny Lloyd. Because I had seen some modern pictures of him from doing Shining research, and yeah, that's fucking Danny Lloyd just sitting in the bleachers talking about this kid, and I was like, holy fuck. So that was pretty cool. But anyways, they obviously had to recast the character, and they got Ewan Mcgregor. I fucking love Ewan McGregor, obviously being a big Star Wars nut, but I've legitimately loved a lot of what he is in that I've seen. I just think he's a fucking magnificent actor, and I think he just kills it as this character. I also have to give credit to the young lady playing Wendy in this movie, because there are flashbacks to the events of The Shining, and the young kid playing Danny. Both of those guys, I wish I had written their names down. Apologies, but oh my god, dude, they fucking nailed it. Oh, good lord. Especially Wendy's actress, man. Oh my god, dude, she was incredible. Just the way she speaks and all of it. Like the way she carries herself, those scenes where Jack Torrance is busting through the door. She's like doing the exact same mannerisms that why can't I remember her name? What the fuck? Shelley Duvall. That Shelley Duvall did in The Shining. So she was just fucking magnificent. I had to take a second to put her over. And then the little dude playing Danny, man, did really, really good as well. I like that, it's clear that they went out of their way not to necessarily cast people who look like these characters. They wanted to cast people who knew how these characters acted, which I really, really enjoyed. And yeah, man, I think they both just do fucking incredible. But yeah, anyways, so we start out, Jack Torrance, or Danny Torrance is just a little kid still, and he's having nightmares. He is haunted by what has happened to him at the Overlook. I mean, I think we're only a couple months removed from those events in this movie, and I mean, this kid's just fucking broken, dude, and he's being haunted by mainly the naked old lady from the bathtub. Just absolutely killer stuff. They recreated her very, very well in this too, I might add. But yeah, he hasn't talked, he hasn't spoken, and he gets visited by Dick Halloran. And you're probably thinking, well, what the fuck? Dick Halloran died. Yeah, well, he's a fucking ghost now. So they do a lot to kind of extend on the powers of The Shining, and that is absolutely showcased later. But even right now, we're getting Doc's ability, not Doc, Dick's ability to be able to visit Danny from beyond his uh from beyond the grave, which was really really cool to see. And he gives him a box, which I thought was really cool. He gives him this little box, and it's he says, I want you to study this, know it inside and out. I want you to be able to detect the smell of it. I want you to know this box, because as he says, the next time that bitch comes, you're gonna lock her in there, or whatever he says. And he does, man. They're watching Looney Tunes, which I always popped for. Big Looney Tunes guy, so seeing that, it's always cool. But but yeah, man. So he just gets up and he walks to the bathroom where the naked old hag typically visits him. And yeah, man, he just walks in there confident as shit, closes the door, and locks her ass up. Like, that was fucking cool, man. That was really, really fucking cool. But that is the end as far as that flashback is concerned. And then we are transported to 2011. And this guy is just fucking broken. Like, this is obviously when Ewan McGregor's performance comes in, because he's now a grown man. Oh my god, dude. He does so well in this movie. And yeah, man, Danny is just completely shattered by what happened to him as a kid, and rightfully so, dude. I mean, that is some traumatic shit. Like, beyond traumatic. I fully understand why this dude has a drinking problem, why he's, full on goddamn nearly killing people in bar fights. I mean, we see it, man. He grabs this fucking pool ball and just damn near caves this guy's skull in. Like, holy shit. Then he hooks up with this one girl from the bar, always a recipe for good times, and then immediately bad times. Why do I know that? You don't need to know. Anyways, but yeah, man, he hooks up with this chick at a bar, and yeah, he wakes up, and she's just butt ass naked in this bed, and there's vomit all over her, and it's just fucking disgusting. He goes in and yaks in the fucking toilet. Like, this guy is not having a good day at all. And then, they showed them doing coke, and he deduces, because he looks in his wallet, and he's like, oh my god, she stole my money to buy the coke. And so he goes in her purse and steals out the money, her money. Because, he basically is like, okay, you stole from me, I'm going to fucking steal from you, fine. It's not like he has any intentions of sticking around, so he's about to go, and then we hear this baby. We hear this fucking baby, and he looks, and it's this little toddler who's just, like, looking at him. And it's like, oh my god, the guilt, dude. The guilt of, like, oh, this fucking mom who's in no way, shape, or form fit to take care of a child. Yeah, this kid's just looking at him, and it's fucking heartbreaking. And then Dick Halloran visits him once again in spirit form, and it's like, oh, don't take her money, Doc, and all this shit, and trying to make him give it back, and yada yada yada. He still leaves with it though. He's like, fuck her. Yeah, man, Danny kind of turned out to be a piece of shit in this, but he does go out of his way. He's at least trying to make his life better. And he goes to New Hampshire. He takes a bus to New Hampshire, looking to start a new life. And he meets Billy. And he just gives him a place to stay. Like, Billy is a stand-up guy, no doubt about it. And, he vouches for him, and the tenant, oh, not the tenant, the landlord, whatever you want to call him, helps him rent out this tiny little apartment, which I actually really like the look of that place, man. I think it looks really, really, really fucking cool. I wouldn't mind staying somewhere like that. It's just a nice little isolated small place. Like, it's that's my kind of thing. I like shit like that. So I really like to look at this place. And there's a chalkboard that the last guy who was there put up, and it just makes up one of the entire walls, which is really cool. But yeah, dude, so he even says, he's like, why are you doing this? And he goes, because I know the look, and it's pretty plain to see that he has also been through some struggles. They later go to an AA meeting, and he is able to better himself, and he also gets a pen pal in the form of, psychic communication with motherfucking Abra, which we'll get into her character here in a second. But so he has this pen pal, he has communication with somebody who has the same gift that he does, which even though it's a young, at that time, young girl, it's still, it's still comforting, And yeah, he's able to do that. He's able to go to these AA meetings, and I love that my favorite part of the early arc with him, we'll get into in a second, but he's able to, he can tell that the guy running the AA meeting has he forgot his watch, and he could tell that he was thinking about where his watch was, and he goes, hey, just so you know, you left your watch in there on the paper towel dispenser. That's where it is. And he's just like, okay, bye. And which I'm like, why would you give yourself away like that? Like, now this dude's like, what the fuck? And he even takes him to his office, and he's like, what the fuck was that? And Danny's just like, I don't know. But yeah, man, then he eventually lands a gig, because that guy is impressed with how he was able to just figure that out, and he can tell he's a good straight-laced, well, not straight-laced, but he's a good guy. He's just, down on his luck, to say the least. But he offers him a job as basically a hospice nurse, or he's a hospice overnight caretaker guy. And yeah, man, he takes the gig, and then we go 8 years later, and we are now at this point, in the point in the movie, that's 2019, and he's 8 years sober, which is fucking rad. He's clean shaven now, a little more kept, whatever, well kept, we'll say that, a little more well kept, and he's able to get up, and I love the speech that he gives, man. It's just so fucking rad, And it's cool that they took this approach with how, and I acknowledge a lot of this stuff comes from the Stephen King novel. I'm not going to act like I'm super knowledgeable about it. I don't know what does and doesn't, so we're going off the movie here, people. But I love the approach they took with how he feels about his dad. Obviously, his dad just went fucking berserk. He just went out of his mind fucking crazy and tried to kill him. Like, he tried to kill Danny. But he looks at, like, what his dad represents to him, and he said, like, at one point my dad stood in this very same position, and he held something like this, and it said 5 months. And I know he would have killed to be where I'm at right now, because at the end of the day, he did try to better himself, and he did try to, get healthy for me and my mom. It didn't work out for him, and I know he would have loved to be where I'm standing right now. So this is for Jack Torrance. Thought that was very very, very cool scene. Very, very emotional. It was rad. It was cool to see that this time has passed, so he's not so fucking bitter. I mean, granted, you have every right to be fucking bitter. Trust me, your dad tried to fucking kill you. But, it just kind of shows where this character is at, and he's at peace with it, which is cool. But yeah, man, so then we get into what his occupation is, and we see this a little bit before that AA meeting, or that AA scene where he has the coin, because he discovered this in 2011. So obviously he has the ability, like Dick Halloran did, to psychically communicate with people. And so he goes into this room, and this guy, this cat, which, by the way, that's a fucking beautiful cat. Like, oh my god, that cat is gorgeous. Cute as all hell. But anyways, So it's one of those cats that like is wandering around a hospice place, and she lays on the bed of people when they're about to die to comfort them. And this guy, this old man, says this to Danny, and he comforts him. Danny does, because this guy is saying like, "Oh, she always knows when it's time, and I'm scared. I'm scared that there's he's just fucking scared. He's like, I knew it was coming. It doesn't make it any less scary." And he goes, "Yeah, we go on afterwards though. It's not, this death is not the end type thing." And then he psychically connects with him and like comforts him, and he's like, there's just immediate relief on this guy's face, and it's just like, oh, which is so nice. And then he eventually does die, and you see that steam come out of his mouth, which was pretty rad to see. It's cool that he just, not the steam necessarily, but it was cool to see him do that. And then years later, he's like, and that guy names him. He names him Dr. Sleep. The first guy he ever helped, he's like, "Oh, you're Dr. Sleep," because, yeah. My mind just went. But anyways, we go 8 years later, and now he's like, that is his deal. He goes in, not Abra. The cat is laying there on the bed, and he looks over and sees Danny, and he's like, "Oh, well, I don't need to really guess why you're here." And I love, this scene was fucking beautiful, dude. There's a couple scenes in this, movie that, I'm not a cry guy. I mean, I have no problem with crying. I'm not one of those macho fucking, I'm not like that. I'm cool with crying, but I don't typically cry at movies. There's a couple scenes in here, man, that always kind of make me like, and this is one of them. It was really cool. I love that, he's sitting there and he's like, "I don't really believe in hell, but I'm just scared that there's not going to be anything." Or he's like, "No, I'm not scared of hell, but I'm just afraid there's going to be nothing," or something like that. And he's like, and that's when Danny's like, "Well, don't worry, we go on after this. It's not, death is not the end, yada, yada, yada." And then he starts saying like, he comforts him, and he begins to feel more relaxed. And he's like, "I can hear your radio playing by your tools." And, yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I can taste the blueberries that my mom used to grow in our backyard when I was a kid." And it's just very beautiful. And then they start singing, he's like, "Yeah, I can hear your radio. Come fly with me. Let's fly, let's fly." It's like, it's fucking great, dude. It's such a cute, beautiful fucking scene, man. And in a movie that has some fucking horrifying scenes, and we'll get into it, I like that we have scenes like this. It really makes you invest in that Danny character. And on the flip side of that, though, we still have some fucking terrifying stuff with him before he even gets involved with the knot and all that stuff. So the big one that stands out to me, man, is when he's sleeping and he is awoken, and there's an arm hanging over him, and the arm's all like rotted and fucking decrepit, and you're like, "Oh fuck." He wakes up. This is still in 2011. I'm pretty fucking sure. And yeah, man, he gets up and he fucking like jumps out of bed, lands on his ass, and he's looking, and it's the dead, not the literal dead body, but it's the dead version of the woman that he stole from and abandoned and kind of just left there to, overdose and die, is what we're pretty much assuming. And then she's like, they haven't, in a weird creepy voice with flies fucking crawling all over her and shit, and she's just like, "They haven't found us yet." And you hear "us," and you're like, "Oh no." And then sure enough, she flips the fucking baby over, and the baby's dead, and he just kind of looks over at Danny, and he says something in baby. I don't fucking know, but he talks. It's fucking freaky, man. It's a really freaky scene. So this guy is still haunted by shit, and I probably should have mentioned that before I talked about all this stuff 8 years later. But hey, we're going all over the place. But yeah, man, the character of Danny Torrance overall is just so fucking great. And you know, we'll talk about Abra here in a second. I love kind of what, makes those two eventually meet up for real to tackle the evil in this movie. Basically, so let's get into Abra for a second. Abra is like, there are certain children who have the shining, much like Danny did, who are just super, super fucking powerful. They just don't know it yet. And they don't really understand it or can comprehend it. Abra is unique because she's not like fully aware of what's going on, because the first time we meet her, she is a much smaller girl in 2011. She's probably like 5 or so. I think 5. I think it's her 5th birthday that they're celebrating, and yeah, there's like a magician performing, and she's like, "I can do that," and he's like, "That's great, sweetie." And like, little does he know, she literally can do that. That they go in because he's making a spoon balance on his nose and shit, and his parents go into the room, the kitchen, to get something, I guess the cake or whatever. And they look up, and all of these fucking spoons are just on the ceiling, and then they look over at her, and she's just like, abracadabra, and they all fucking fall. You're like, what the fuck? This kid is like extremely powerful, which is fucking cool to see. And as she grows older and she forms this closer relationship with Danny, and they talk every once in a while, and like I said, it's good to have someone who also has that same sort of ability. But what happens is, we'll get into Rose the Hat here in just a second, but this uber super fucking powerful young woman, very, very powerful with the shining. And, what ends up happening is there's this group called the Knot, which we'll get into a little more detail, but they kill this kid who also has the shining. I'm kind of doing it a disservice. We'll bounce around. So the Knot, let's just fucking get right into it here, man. The Knot is a group of what I would basically describe them as is shining vampires. They feed on shine. They feed on the magic that the shining provides. It keeps them young. It keeps them alive. If they don't have it, they eventually do wither away and die. And so they're constantly seeking out kids who have a good amount of shine. And when you're a child, that magic, as Abra calls it, is much more pure, which is poetic to real life. You have a much more magical, whimsical mind as a child, and as you grow up, that kind of withers away. You can be a weirdo like me who still kind of has it, but for the most part, it withers away. And mine, that unfortunately has withered away quite a bit, but it's still there, man. I still got it a little, but moving on. So they are actively seeking out and looking for kids who shine like a lot, and they find this kid. We'll call him Baseball Boy, and which I brought up Baseball Boy a little while back, talking about the original Danny Torrance, the actor playing him. But anyways, so they find this kid, they track him down, and they just fucking mutilate this kid. Like, it is just fucking brutal, dude. It's sad. It's a very, very hard, sad scene to watch. And obviously Abra takes note of this and can tell that this is happening, and basically doesn't experience the same pain necessarily, but just the horror of seeing that and experiencing that same anguish. It fucking sends her into a frenzy, and now she's determined to find these fucking people and bring them to justice. Danny, on the other hand, is like, because she eventually tracks Danny down, like to where he is the first time they ever meet up, and he's like, you really shouldn't do that. You need to just keep the shine low and just stop doing it, and just hope that they don't fucking catch you, because if they do, they'll have a fucking feast, like they did on this kid. And that kind of links the two of them. And then their initial meeting, he's like, do not fucking do it, do not fucking go after them, you will die, there's no fucking way. And he he basically says, like, I'm not gonna help you because I'm not gonna be responsible for you dying. But then he is eventually visited by Dick Halloran for the last time, which is sad. He says, like, this is, says, and Dick's like, how long has it been, man? Because I mean, the world I'm in now, I don't know what time is, And he says, it's been 8 years. And he goes, well, this is the last time I'm going to see you, but I had to see you. This is not the quote, by the way, but he's basically saying, I had to come and visit you one last time to let you know that you need to help her and you need to pay back your debt, because I helped you when you were a little kid, and now there's a little kid that needs your help, and it's time for you to pay your debt. Which I really thought that line was eerie, because, spoiler alert, Danny Torrance does end up dying in this movie. And so when he said that, did Dick Halloran just know that he was going to die? And is that the debt that needs to be paid? And does Danny realize that? He has to realize that because he's, psychic. He has to realize that's what that means. So maybe he just realized, he's like, all right, like, whatever. But I don't know. That scene's very interesting because it leaves a lot up to interpretation. But yeah, so he eventually decides to go out of his way to help her. Now, we gotta go into a little more in depth about the knot, the true knot, or whatever you want to fucking call him. We'll just call him the knot. The knot, like I said, vampires, and they're led by, in my opinion, the third pillar of this movie, Rose the Hat. Rose the Hat, dude. Fucking incredible villain. We open the movie with her where it's 1980 and she looks the exact same as she does in 2019 and 2011 and all this shit. She just looks the same because she's been feeding on basically kids for her whole life, her whole very much so extended life. I really, really enjoyed her character. I thought, obviously Rebecca Ferguson, magnificent, beautiful, awesome fucking actress, and she does incredible with this role. She is a great, great bad guy. She's awesome. But you kind of learn a little more about these guys as the movie goes on. Obviously, they straight up kill a kid in the beginning of this movie. That being Violet back in 1980, and they steal her shine. But yeah, man, and they end up... But in modern times, well, we'll talk about this first. So we have... Oh, I don't remember her name, but it's this little blonde chick. She's like 15 years old, and she lures this pedophile to a movie theater, and she has the shine, and what she's able to do is she can basically, whisper in someone's ear or just straight up tell people what to do, and they basically have to do it. Or like she tells them how to think, and they think like that. She's as they say, she's a pusher. She's able to, influence people basically. And so what Rose offers her is the ability, well, not the ability, but they offer her a place in the knot. And they have this whole conversion ceremony. And I should mention what this young woman does to pedophiles, which I think is fucking fantastic. She has this guy, and she just kind of leans over. She's acting like she's gonna kiss on him and shit. She just goes sleep, and he fucking just passes out. And she takes a fucking knife, and she's like telling him as he, as she pokes these two holes like right there, and they fucking bleed. And she's like, I know you can explain to your wife about why you were gone or whatever, but you're not gonna be able to explain this. And every time you see these two little marks in the mirror, you're gonna remember the time you were bit by a rattlesnake, and every time you see this, you're gonna say, I like little girls. Which I was just like, holy shit, this chick is cold-blooded. For the right reasons, though, man. That fucking creep deserved it. And Rose sees this because her boy toy brings her to this girl, and so they offer her a spot. They knock her out, and she's in this trailer, and she's like, "Live long, eat well," and yada yada yada. I forget what they say, but she's like, "Do you want to become a fucking vampire?" Essentially, she's like, "Sure." So she they have this whole conversion ceremony. It's very ceremonial, very yeah. So it's obviously she goes through an extreme amount of pain, and then boom, she wakes up the next morning and she's part of the knot, and she can now live for a long, long time. And I really thought these villains were interesting because the whole arc with them is that we as the years grow on, the shine of kids is starting to die down more and more. And this isn't a big plot line, but one of the guys says it's because of like Netflix and cell phones and shit like that, which I'm glad they didn't like overdo that aspect of this movie. But they're basically saying like it's hard to find Steam nowadays because kids are just not the way they used to be. So anytime they do find someone, they jump all over that shit, and they're having a real hard time sustaining themselves. And one of the older members of the knot, I think they just call him Gramps, fucking dies. And the way these people die is like horrifying. If they starve and if they don't get enough shine and they grow old, they fucking just literally deteriorate. And it's slow too. It's painful, it's slow. And they just turn to fucking steam. They just turn into steam, and yeah, his eyes get sunk back into his head and shit, and he's just fucking seizing, and eventually he just. And then of course the knot is a bunch of sickos, so they all jump at the chance to get some steam, which is fucking wild. But yeah, man, the knot is just such a fucking cool concept for a villain group of people. Just fucking great, man. I really, really like the knot. And yeah, man, they kill this little kid, and then eventually I love, love, love the sequences between Rose and Abra. Because Abra, her power is great, but it's untapped. She doesn't really know exactly how to control it yet, but she's still really fucking powerful. And Rose can see that. And so they have these amazing psychic fucking wild battles. The two big ones, it's not really a battle, this first one, but when they're in the grocery store and Abra basically puts herself in Rose's body, and they see the mirror and Rose gets launched back in the grocery store and shit. That was fucking incredible. And like, I gotta lend the camera work, man. Mike Flanagan always uses the camera in such a fucking creepy, scary way. And I think this film is no exception. He does fucking phenomenal work, especially in those scenes with Abra and Rose the Hat. Just fucking beautiful stuff. And then, the scene where they're... Oh, there's a fucking bird on my porch. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Moving on. So, that was funny. Anyways, so the scene where they are... that was funny. The scene where they're basically... Abra's going through Rose's mind. And Rose is able to go through Abra's mind as well. And Abra obviously has a lot less life experience. So it's just a bunch of like file cabinets and shit, which is a really cool way to, showcase that. And then Rose just has this fucking, as she says, a cathedral, which is literally, when Abra goes into her mind, that's literally what it is. It's this big fucking cathedral, which I love the scene where she's going through Rose is going through Abra's brain basically, through these file cabinets, and then the drawer just closes on her hand. and she's trying to take her skin out or take her hand out of this thing while Abra is going through her mind, and she doesn't want her to see anything too fucking crazy to make her more powerful or whatever the fuck. Point being, she does not want her going through her mind at all. And basically compromises Rose for the rest of the movie, or at least for a good amount of the movie. But yeah, man, so she gets trapped in this fucking in this file cabinet, and she just peels her fucking skin back, and I'm like, oh! You just see the fucking bones and the muscle and shit as she just takes her fucking hand out of this metal cabinet. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? That was so... I can see people's heads blow up, no big deal, but there's something about that. I was just like, oh, no. Oh, no. Fucking freaky shit, man. But, you know, what really stood out to me about those scenes, like I said, was that camera work and just how we get transitions. You know, Abra standing at the window and then basically just the entire room just flipping. So she's hanging off of the window. It's like, oh, dude. And obviously the scenes of Rose just floating through, like, space, basically. It's just, dude, I'm not doing a good job of describing these scenes. This, like I said before, this is, or if I didn't say it before, I'll say it now. This is one of those movies that you really, really need to just watch. Because there's nothing that I can say that's going to remotely amount to the experience that this movie can provide, because it's just fucking great. But yeah, man, so all of this stuff, you know, we eventually lead to the good guys getting the knot into a trap, and they end up wasting all of them. Unfortunately, Billy does die here because they're able to, or well, they've killed the rest of the knot, and it's just that blonde girl left, and she's shot up. She's starting to fucking fade. Like, you can tell she's dying. And she looks at Billy, and she's just like, you know, she can influence people, so she's like, kill yourself. And without fucking missing a beat, this dude just takes his rifle, just boom, just... You're like, shit! Like, it's like that, man. This movie's very, very quick with some of the deaths in this. That one in particular, man, she's just like, kill yourself. And he's like, all right. And he just fucking kills himself. It's like how powerful that fucking girl was. And, you know, now she's dead at this point. And you're just like, thank God. Because if that girl wanted to, dude, she could have, like, completely wreaked havoc on the earth. Like, before she got with the knot and stuff, man... If you can just get someone to blow their fucking brains out like that, what is stopping you from, like, goddamn near taking over the world? Like, it's just fucking wild to me. But anyway, so she dies, and Rose the Hat, she was not able to go with them because her mind was compromised by Abra, so it was too dangerous for Rose, but now she's the only one left. So she makes the decision to go after Abra, which then leads us into the final act of this movie at the Overlook Hotel. A lot of the complaints I hear of this movie, I hear about this last act. A lot of people don't like how referential it is to The Shining, yada yada yada. Dude, at this point, when I first saw this movie, at this point, I was already so fucking impressed with what this movie had done. To when we got to this last act, I was like, give it to me. I've been waiting. I didn't need it. If they didn't have this stuff in this movie, and they would have had a equally as satisfying ending to this movie that had nothing to do with the Overlook Hotel or nothing like that, I would have been happy with it. But I was already nerding out at the little stuff they were throwing in here and there, and then to just get this last little bit of, like, just... I fucking really liked it, man. And I don't think it damages the story either. I really don't. I think it's a really, really fun, awesome last act. But yeah, man, we get to the Overlook Hotel, and it is completely, utterly abandoned. It is decrepit. It is dying. There is just nothing left of this place at all. Until Dan Man gets in there. He tells Abra to just wait in the car while he goes in there and wakes everybody up. And he says, if Rose gets here, let me know. And so he goes in there, and we get we're gonna be a little out of order. I have well, no, we're not actually, but he gets in there, and we get some really good stuff. Big one when he goes over to the door, the famous red rum door, and he kind of puts his head through it, and we get that very similar shot to in The Shining. Here's Johnny. You get a very much more subdued version of that shot with Danny Torrance here. But yeah, man, and then honestly, I'm having a difficult time calling it because this whole movie's just so goddamn good. But this scene at the bar, it might be my favorite scene of this whole movie. Genuinely. Like, it's such a fucking great scene because you have Jack Torrance there, who is, the spirit of Jack Torrance, who is, manifesting himself to be the bartender. And obviously, Danny, in his adult life, grew quite the affection for alcohol. I'm pretty sure it's the right word. He grew quite the fixation with alcohol. Whatever. He became an alcoholic, fucker. Alright? I'm not a dictionary, even though being a writer, I probably should be more of one, but moving on. So he's grown quite a fondness for the occasional adult beverage, and he has since kicked that habit. And I'm not going to be able to do it justice, man. The dialogue between those two, and real quick, props to the gentleman who is playing the role of Jack Torrance in this movie. I do not know his name. Did great. Did fucking awesome. Those are big, big, big shoes to fill. And you had this obviously the two people playing Wendy and Danny, the young versions. Obviously they have some big shoes to fill too, but having this long drawn out sequence with Ewan McGregor as Danny, that's pressure, man. That is huge pressure. I think this guy fucking killed it, man. I think he did great. But yeah, dude, so we get I love this scene because Danny is just unleashing all of this pent up anger. Because, we mentioned before how at the AA meeting, he's doing, he said this is for Jack Torrance, and he's trying to keep a positive outlook on it. But at the end of the day, man, there's that side of him that is very bitter towards his father. And rightfully so. Like, beyond rightfully so. And he just unleashes that here, man. And he's just says all this stuff, and the entire time Jack's just fucking with him. And he's like, I think you have me mistaken for somebody else. I'm just the bartender. And he goes, I'll pour you anything you like. And you can see the heartbreak on Danny's face when Jack starts going into, it's medicine. Or, well, Danny says, man takes a drink takes a drink, and drink takes a man. I think I got that right, hopefully. But man takes a drink, and the drink takes a man. And Jack just goes, it's medicine. And Danny's like, what the fuck? What? And he goes, you're stuck with a fucking wife and kid, and you're surrounded by other mouths with your fucking family, and it's enough to make a man sick, and he's just being unbelievably cruel, much like, Jack Nicholson's performance in The Shining, just saying unbelievably cruel things to him with a bottle of, or not a bottle, but a glass of Jack Daniels sitting right in front of this former alcoholic. And, he's just saying all these unbelievably mean things. And he's finally like, the mind is a chalkboard and this is the eraser. So tell me, Danny, are you going to take your medicine? And he just goes, and at this point, Danny's just in tears. And he's just like, no. And he fucking Or Jack just, fuck it. Excuse me, I could feel that one coming. Jack just knocks the fucking drink out of the way. And then boom, Danny snaps out of it. Fucking amazing scene. Again, I did not do it justice. This is something you need to just see. Holy shit, dude. Just fucking phenomenal stuff here, man. Really, really, really good shit. And then, you know, he is then alerted by Abra that Rose is here, and we get the final battle in the writing room. I will just continue to refer to it as that, but yeah, man, we get that staircase, we get all of it. She's standing in front of the table that had the typewriter and shit. It's kind of hard to believe that they didn't take any furniture out of there, but you know, whatever. But anyways, and who's to say how much of this is actually in their mind and how much of it is real? You could go on all day about that shit. But anyways, so she's, you know, she has this. Oh no, Danny has the axe. We get a really cool last final battle, and you know, I don't know why I'm blanking. Rose, I need to get my mind right, people. Come on now, I need caffeine or something. Anyways, Rose gets the upper hand and stabs Danny in the fucking leg with the ass end of the axe. You know, that little spike part, and just knocks it right into his leg. And as she says, nicks his femoral artery, I believe is what it's called. Femoral artery, something like that. Whatever it's called, he's fucking bleeding to death. And she's like, you know, just taunting him, and eventually she tries to get into his mind, and she's sticking her because as she says, the torture and the pain and the fear purifies the steam. And she goes, oh, you taste like whiskey. And she's fucking sticking her thumb in his fucking wound, and you're like, oh, god damn. He's screaming, and she's trying to like get into his head, and she's like, what do you got in there? And she sees all the boxes of all the former spirits that Danny has trapped in his mind. Not in a bad way. He used those boxes like Dick told him to, and has kept those spirits trapped there. And so, and once the Overlook got abandoned, all those spirits attached themselves to Danny. So one by one, he was locking them up over the years. And finally, he was able to unleash all of those boxes. And he completely, like, they just overwhelm Rose and just kill the shit out of this woman. Like, they're sticking her hands like in her face, but not like tearing her face apart, but they're just like, their hands are absorbing in her face and shit and getting in her eye and stuff. It's fucking brutal. And eventually they just rip her apart, and she just fucking turns to steam. It's a fucking crazy death for Rose the Hat, but fitting, because that motherfucker needed to go. She was evil. So yeah, man, shout out to Mermaid Man. Evil. Anyways, didn't think I'd get a SpongeBob reference in this. But moving on. So eventually all these spirits, and it's all the same people, and we get, you know, the twins. Hello, Danny. We get all that shit. We get Grady. We get all the old favorites. Naked Old Lady, yada, yada, yada. We get all of them here. And then they turn their attention to Danny, and they start to try and take him over, and they end up kind of possessing him in a way. And, you know, the evil of this place, much like it did to Jack, has now done it to Danny. And now Danny is chasing Abra through the halls, which I didn't even mention the maze sequence between Abra and Rose the Hat, when they're, you know, they're in shining mode, and they're in Danny's mind, actually, and they're just amazing stuff there. Again, amazing cinematography in that maze sequence. And eventually, you know, Abra's like running past Rose and cutting her fucking legs open and shit. And beautiful scene there. But anyways, so Danny is now possessed. Like I said, we're bouncing all over the place here, man. This is a long fucking movie. It's gonna be a long fucking review too, I can already tell. But anyways, so yeah, man. Danny is chasing Abra around with the axe, you know, limping, very reminiscent of Jack Torrance. And eventually she is able to get the better of him. and say, well, not like physically, obviously, but she's able to, let him know. He's like, I know you're not Danny. Danny would never do this, yada, yada, yada. And he's able to get the better of all of his demons for a second and tell Abra to run. Because Abra mentions to these spirits inhabiting Danny that the very first place Danny stopped at the Overlook was the boiler room. And then you can just see it on his face. He's like, oh, shit. And then, he kind of, he snaps out of it, tells Abra to run, and then he goes to the boiler room. I'm pretty sure I got that sequence out of order. But, he gets there to the boiler room and he's trying to shut everything off because Danny, when he wasn't fucking fucked up, was doing everything in his power to rig this place to explode. And it's about there, or at least burned down. But yeah, man, so he's in there and he's trying to fucking shut this off, and eventually, like, everything starts to fade, like, possession-wise. He just kind of snaps out of it. Can't remember what exactly makes him snap out of it, but, he just kind of realizes, the flames are all rising up around him and shit, and then, he just kind of goes to his knees, and you see this hand just, like, caress his face, and it pans over, and it's his mom. Which, that was fucking beautiful, because at one point, it was actually at the bar scene. He says the last, every time I could tell when people were going to die, because when I was a kid, because I would see flies all around them. And then in the last weeks of my mom's life, her whole face was just covered in flies, and I could barely see her eyes. So for the last thing for Danny to see is his mom's face. The person who saved his life, and enabled him to go on this journey and save Abra, and it was fucking beautiful, dude. It was really, really, really fucking beautiful. And Abra runs out, and that whole fucking place just burns right to the ground, dude. It just fucking collapses. And yeah, man, it was a fucking beautiful, beautiful way to end this movie. We're not totally done though. Abra is back home now. Her dad actually died at one point. Crow, who's one of the Knot members, killed her dad. So it's just her mom now. Her and her mom, and she ends up, she's talking to Danny, and you're just. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, I kind of figure what this is going to be. And, obviously, Danny, who is dead now, has taken the role that Dick Halloran played for him. And now he is kind of her guide to learn about her powers and help people and yada, yada, yada. So, but eventually her mom comes in and calls her to dinner. And her mom basically knows that, hey, my daughter has superpowers. So whenever, Abra tells her about that, I'm going all over the fucking place. Sorry, ADHD is going woo right now. But the last thing that Danny says to her at this point, while he's like projecting himself in her room, is, I told you at one point to hide the shining and to not, that it would protect you to just not show it and yada, yada, yada. And he goes, I was wrong. And he goes, shine on, Abra Stone, shine on. And then he fucking fades away. But yeah, so she uses that, and she tells her mom that, I was talking to Danny, and her mom just kind of accepts it and says, hey, well, it's time for dinner. She's like, all right. And she goes, I'll be right down. And she kind of looks, and now we've kind of learned that all of those spirits from the Overlook are now fucking with Abra, but now Abra has a way to lock those spirits away, just like Danny did, because much like little Danny did, she goes right in the fucking bathroom and closes the door because that fucking old hag is there again, trying to fuck with her, and Abra just goes in there comfortable as shit, just closes the door. And that's the end of the movie, man. Dr. Sleep, dude. What the fuck else can I say, man? I mean, this movie just fucking rules. I know this review was all over the place, man. Sorry, but it's just how it had to be. This movie has way too much stuff in it to just go along the plot like normal. Even though I try not to do that, but it happens sometimes still. Anyways, so, but yeah, man, absolutely fucking wonderful movie. Just fucking fantastic. And yeah, man, that'll do it for the review portion of this very long video. But you know what we gotta do now, baby? We gotta get into the blood, the guts, and the gory bits. We gotta get into my kill of the film. Stick around. Doctor Sleep just fucking rules, man. This movie has everything going for it. That's one of the, if I had to sum this movie up, it'd be that. This movie has every fucking thing going for that. It's an amazing Shining sequel. It's an amazing standalone movie. This movie this movie just fucks, dude. It's great. I love it. And one of the big things I love about this movie, as haunting as some of them are the fucking kills. Holy shit. Get some powerhouse ones in this, dude. Not a whole lot, but like a lot. Obviously you get Billy blowing his fucking brains out at the shootout with the knot. That was fucking brutal. Rose the Hat's death is fucking crazy, with all the spirits of the Overlook kind of overtaking her and just completely fucking her up. Danny's death, while it's obviously not the most, it's not graphic at all, but it's very, just poetic and beautiful. It's an incredible scene. And you get some more like that with the two guys in the hospice care who just die. There's really nothing to it, but to me, man. Oh, and I didn't even mention the deaths of the Knot members when they just fucking completely disintegrate, essentially, into steam. And it's just how long and drawn out and painful it looks. You're like, holy fuck. That was obviously brutal. But easily 100% kill of the film goes to Baseball Boy. As sick as I might sound. Not that I'm like, oh yeah, what a fucking sick kill, dude. How awesome. No. This kill is just fucking disturbing. It's one of those ones that I say is kill of the film because it has such a fucking impact on you. And it really is the kill that drives forth this story, essentially. But yeah, man, just this kid just gets tied down or held down by these Knot members, and Rose just fucking tears this kid to shreds. And he's like, it's so sad too, because he's like, are you gonna hurt me? And she's like, yeah. And she starts stabbing him in the leg and shit. And he's just screaming his little lungs out. And just carving up his chest and shit. You don't see a lot of it, but you get enough to know what the fuck's happening. And she just draws it out, man. And this kid's letting out steam. And these fucking sick-ass Knot members are just, like, sucking it all up. And it's just fucking disgusting, man. It's such a sad, brutal, awful death for this little kid. But, it has great emotional impact, man. So that is my kill of the film for Dr. Sleep. Fucking hell, dude. What an amazing, incredible fucking movie. Just killer. Just absolutely fucking killer. But yeah, man. So that'll do it for Dr. Sleep. And now we have to snap back to reality because we can no longer spend time in good movie land. We can't do it forever because next time on Days of Darkness, we will be reviewing Alien Resurrection. Hope you're looking forward to it, because as far as watching it is concerned, I'm not looking forward to it. But as far as getting on this camera and ripping it to fucking shreds, oh yeah. But yeah, guys, without further ado, as always, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for showing support for the dream. If you have stuck around through this fucking absorbently long video, thank you. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm rambling. But without further ado, man, take care of each other and keep watching horror. All right, guys, have a good day.